With the Forgotten Land being released in late March, one of Kirby's largest moments in his life as a video game character is about to happen. As important as this release is going to be, it only depicts the start of a much bigger celebration and will kick off the 30th anniversary in the most perfect way. Normally you would expect a game like the Forgotten Land to be the main attraction rather than the appetizer, but Kirby's birthday actually happens later on April 27. Much like his creator, Kirby doesn't mirror his age at all and is healthier than ever, which is why there should be plenty of surprises left for what we can expect, like a wallpaper. Well, you have to break the ice somehow. But before we start to fantasize widely about all sorts of wishes and dreams, let's summarize everything we already know. As mentioned at the start, all eyes are set on the Forgotten Land right now, and with good reason. It's not like your standard Kirby game being released every once in a while, but a huge turning point in the franchise and has the serious potential to appeal to a much wider audience. Because of that, Nintendo's going to fully focus on this event at all costs and will probably avoid distracting our attention with other eye-catcher. The least they can do is to announce further plans without specifying, in a very likely Nintendo Direct happening this month. Other than that, a Kirby-focused presentation in the likes of Animal Crossing or Smash is naturally an additional opportunity to highlight the anniversary and give us one final, extensive trailer for the Forgotten Land. It would be a great way to push the hype train one final time and simultaneously reveal surprises that could benefit from the excitement the Forgotten Land creates. If you think about it, bringing out the main attraction way before all the other stuff makes perfect sense in regard to what the new game is trying to achieve. So many people show interest in the Forgotten Land, although they have left the franchise years ago, so fishing in a bunch of new fans as a means to show them the legacy of the franchise is just a perfect strategy to maintain interest in the series, provided that there are going to be further surprises in the pipeline. This leads us directly to what we can expect and which hopes seem realistic. Because of the lackluster anniversary of Zelda last year, it surely appears to be plausible to not hope for too much, since an anniversary is basically only a huge marketing campaign. The clear difference, however, between Kirby and Zelda or Mario is the position each of them are in. The Legend of Zelda or Super Mario are solely Nintendo's house-made franchise, whereas Kirby is developed by a secondary studio in the form of HAL. Of course, Nintendo holds all rights to Kirby, and as far as my knowledge goes, HAL is not allowed to release any Kirby game for other platforms, but they pull the strings behind the franchise and probably need only approval from Nintendo whenever they propose any new projects. If Nintendo doesn't want to give Zelda a proper anniversary, it's completely their decision, but Kirby is HAL's baby and trademark, so of course they're going to celebrate the occasion as much as possible. Just look at the anniversary artwork and all the details to former adventures. Even the animation series is referenced here. With that being pointed out, there's a 100% chance we will see something beyond the Forgotten Land, but we have no idea how big this something could be. Most people like to refer to the Mario or Zelda Game & Watch Pocket, and while this surely is a simple idea, I don't think we will get one. What they could create are general merchandise articles instead that are never going to come out in the West, but this is just usual procedure for an anniversary, I suppose. What would be much more interesting is a second Kirby's Dream Collection akin to the first one they released for the 20th anniversary, which also didn't come out, at least in Europe, but this is just usual procedure for an anniversary. The first collection featured a catalog of classic Kirby adventures with additional bonus missions similar to Return to Dreamland, a museum and a glimpse of the animation series. It was like a present for fans and an excuse from Margolor for trying to murder everyone, but Kirby's not resentful. So how could a second Dream Collection look like? Well, first I think they shouldn't call it Dream Collection 2 and instead bring out the Return to Dreamland saga in one package. This anthology would contain Return to Dreamland, Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot with updated Star Allies visuals, making the Switch the ultimate console for playing modern Kirby games. I wouldn't go as far as saying they should also expand these games with additional level, since upgrading 3 relative big games would already be more than enough. To be honest, even expecting this collection at all is maybe already a little too much, so at least give us Return to Dreamland with updated visuals. It was the first game that pulled out Kirby from a long period of cancelled console games and solidified the franchise's style of gameplay for the next 10 years. Back when its release, it was as much of an important release as the Forgotten Land is now, so letting people play this absolute banger of a Kirby game with the colorful visuals of Star Allies is the least they should do to honor the last decade. It helps that Return to Dreamland is just an amazing game regardless of the legacy it upholds, so it shouldn't be that much work to reuse Star Allies groundwork and use that foundation to simply upgrade the graphics. Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot are of course not mediocre games either, and would benefit even more from a fresh coat. Being originally released on the 3DS, you would think some magic would get lost due to not having a 3D effect anymore, but if anything, the developers were clever enough to make these games independent of a console's gimmick, hence leaving their cards open in case they want to revisit them one day. Yes, some moments make use of the 3D effect, but all of this is never required and only made the level design much better. So much greater that it would be a shame if people couldn't get a chance to catch up on these Kirby classics, and maybe they could even add multiplayer this time, who knows. Star Allies is often regarded as a letdown among the community thanks to its short length and extremely low difficulty, but this is just because of the high standard all the titles before set. It would be strange to release a collection of Super Nintendo or N64 games if there's Nintendo Switch Online, with most of Kirby's adventures already being available there. So instead they have to draw people in by recontextualizing the most successful games in recent years, and the most important reason of all, I just want to see the Return to Dreamland quartet all on one console with the fabulous visuals of Star Allies. If it's not a collection, another spin-off seems to be very likely in consideration how the Forgotten Land took so long. My personal wish would be a more expanded battle royale with the proper online mode, more minigames and the same fun multiplayer on the 3DS. I think the game was underlined by the Switch and could not fully unfold its true potential due to people not wanting to still play on their 3DS. Of course, they could also just bring out a sequel on the eShop like Super Clash or Fighters 2, which is another very likely possibility. These titles don't take up too much manpower and maybe we could see a second take on DDD Drum Dash. But what about a remake? The series is surprisingly reserved when it comes to remakes, and although nearly all the games aged perfectly fine, there are still some candidates who would benefit greatly from a second take. My personal wish would be The Amazing Mirror, since it's impossible to properly play the game with multiplayer today, but whatever the case may be, I would be extremely thankful for every remake they could present us. In the same breath, it should be mentioned that a Kirby mobile game is still within the realm of possibility. Again, Nintendo is probably not that actively involved into what Hal is planning for Kirby and publishes every game as long as it's not a completely train wreck. If Hal really wants to develop a mobile title, no one is holding them back, which is why I think it's long overdue for doing so. Whatever you might think about such an experiment, a mobile game can only help the franchise and catch in a whole new target group that would otherwise not even blink at a Switch game. Kirby is way more popular in Japan, a country that is known to be a sucker for flexible gaming experiences, so just imagine all the people who would love to become Kirby fans without even knowing it. They can get a grip for the franchise with their mobile devices and afterwards start their very first Kirby game on the Switch, which of course would be the Forgotten Land. Provided that the game is going to be rather easy as well, this new target group would have the luck to start with a very beginner-friendly franchise and could easily make the move from scrubs to more experienced players. The audience for smartphone and Kirby games have a lot in common in terms of expected knowledge of gaming and just make too much sense to not take this opportunity from a business standpoint. To be precise, if you look closer at some releases in the recent time, there might have been first signs for a future mobile title. Super Kirby Clash follows a very mobile-like model and doesn't let you finish the game at your own pace. In fact, it's free to play with purchasable items that speed up the whole process or make you stronger. It's basically the first Kirby mobile game only on Switch and could fit perfectly on every portable device these days. And if you think about how the developers love to try out things before they fully commit to one idea, see the countless 3D experiments before the Forgotten Land was announced, it becomes actually pretty likely that there's going to be some sort of smartphone Kirby game. Maybe they could reuse the style of the cancelled GameCube game since it resembles pretty much a modern smartphone experience, at least by the looks, works and would surely be simple enough to not overtax the audience. A fact that many fans are still not aware of is the existence of Hal Laboratory, a smaller development department within the company that focuses on titles and concepts apart from the Kirby series. Their most prominent work is Box Boy or Part-Time UFO, both being released on Switch with the same type of charm you would come to expect from Kirby normally. It's basically like an indie team within a big budget company that really cares for what they do, but what's even more interesting is how Part-Time UFO initially released on smart devices back in 2017 and made the shift to the Switch only 3 years later. There's surely some expertise in the company when it comes to working with smart devices, and even though it would conflict with the idea of being independent of Kirby, they could still share their knowledge and at least help to make a quality smartphone game. Often people will keep a very defensive pose when it comes to these things because of all the questionable monetization structures, but Super Kirby Clash is completely beatable without paying a penny, and Part-Time UFO was praised for its perfect simplicity and overall fit for the platform. Here's something that is a little more ambitious but has nothing to do with games. Right now the Kirby Cafe is Japan exclusive and just a dream for every fan and gourmet. It was always my wish to go there someday, so what if they make things easier and expand their little establishment worldwide? I don't expect a cafe in every major country in the West, but why not bring in one in Europe and one in the US to test things out and see if there's actually an audience? I'm fully aware that this idea is most certainly the least likely thing to happen from this video, but I just wanted to remind everyone that there is a Kirby Cafe, and it makes me very sad I have no opportunity to visit it. Well, hopefully someday, just need to train that Japanese dayo. Another way to celebrate Kirby's boomer age would be a new episodes of the animation show. At this time the anime is roughly 15 years old and still holds up with the attention to detail and overall charm. It's one of the very few examples of a video game adaptation that actually worked and translated the game's world accurately into another medium. 100 episodes prove the popularity, which is partly owned thanks to Sakurai's direct influence on the quality and portrayal of the show. The Mario movie is just knocking on our door, and with Nintendo's plan to extend their business to more than video games, it only makes sense to revisit one of the few, if not the best, Nintendo anime show. But it's not only because of my desire as a fan. Since the last episode aired, a bunch of Kirby games released and therefore introduced a lot of fan favorite characters. I would love to see Margalore, Zuzi, Taranza or Highness voiced and all their storylines animated. The composition of the original show is basically structured with an open end, and even though the final episode indicated peace for Dreamland, it would be no problem to write in new stories in this Monster of the Week kinda show. Other than that, merchandise is always a given, and although Nintendo only seems to create amiibos these days on very special occasions like a new Zelda title, there's still the possibility for additional ones. If it's not for the Forgotten Land, bring out an anniversary amiibo that is based on the original Kirby or something more detailed like the Pixel Mario or Link. Merchandise is rarely released in the West, and amiibo are one of the few opportunities to get quality McDonald's toys of Kirby characters for your living room. That's it, these are my ideas of what could happen and what seems realistic in consideration of past actions. Whatever might happen, we should already be happy to experience a game like the Forgotten Land on Kirby's birthday 1 month prior, and seeing how they care for their baby, I'm pretty sure they have plenty of surprises left to announce. Although the pink ball is turning 30 this year, it seems like his potential to become much more has only started, and with each passing day, it's only going to be a matter of time until we will finally play the biggest Kirby game up to this point. Please announce Kirby Air Raid 2.